Hey everybody, this is Perch. I recently did a video talking about DC sales numbers and does the absolute universe actually cannibalize the main line and everything else. It was somebody who wrote a mail. It was in response to a video that Wes from Thinking Critical did. Sorry, the mail was responding to that, and then I was asked for my opinion. My opinion differed from Wes's. If you go back and listen to that video, though, what you won't hear is me going, yeah, that son of a bitch grifter over there, Wes, or any of that. It was just kind of a respectful disagreement. And I didn't call him out at all, by the way. I just like, here's another way to look at the numbers. This is kind of my analysis of it. I'm not even sure I've mentioned him by name. But one of the things I truly do despise about kind of the internet community and kind of what it's all become. And I say this on two fronts. One, it's personally annoying. And two, it's like seizing defeat from the jaws of victory in the sense that, the tattling that goes on, by the way, not just within the fans, also within the creators, because I will get calls and I will get night letters at times whenever I mention, like if I mention Zach on this channel, I will get a mail like, you shouldn't mention this guy, or and sometimes Wes as well. And it's like, what I get it, but also I don't get it actually. I understand the point people try to make, like, well, these guys complain about comics, we associate with that. I get that. On the other hand, like, for a hobby that is meant to be a little bit more intellectual than, say, movies, we have to read things. You have to read words. You have continuity that spans decades. You have kind of a wealth of knowledge here. Are we really all just saying that we're incapable of kind of being able to say, hey, here's two people who can be friendly with each other and have different opinions, and that's okay? I mean, but really? And I understand in light of the Kirk thing, this cuts a little deeper at the moment, but come on, like we really, what does it benefit us to say, I don't know, what, how does that help anything? I mean, aren't we stronger in comics? So we have like a kind of united front of, hey, we all think very differently about comics, but we all love them. And so here's two very, very different opinions. And by the way, this is the most benign difference I had. Here's two very, very different opinions, but we both love comics, and that's what we're united by. That's number one. The second is the tattling. I am not joking, I got a message, an email from somebody going, hey, if you call him out, I let him know that you called him out. I'm like, okay, I didn't call him out. I didn't call him by name. I didn't do a blind item like somebody, I won't mention who, is a dumbass. I talk boring sales numbers. Why do you do that? Why do you people do that? And honestly, some bigger names, some people who sometimes show up on these shows play these kinds of games. They slide into someone's DMs with the, hey, did you see this over here? I don't know. Like what are you, a middle school girl who's fighting over Labubus? Like what is, like, that is the level of maturity here. Like just let me handle my own business, and let Wes handle his own business. Comically, I talked to Wes on Sunday, just a couple days ago, like 3 days ago. And, asked about families, asked about our kids. Like, these are not, we're not two enemies. Stop being a dick and trying to stir up trouble. Okay. Anyway, that's this little lead in. 3 minutes, too many minutes on that. I want to talk Longshot. So Longshot, this is what a segue. We're just going, there's no gentle segue from one place to another. Longshot as a character, I loved. Now, part of it was my introduction to Art Adams, and his limited series was great. It was a sense of sci-fi. It was very different from Marvel at the time. I love the art. I love the kind of this character and this idea. It felt like a really big idea, and it was really, really enjoyable. And then they brought Longshot into the X-Men, and Longshot as a character was very much a product of the 80s. There's been a lot of adjustment if you get into the 90s, and then kind of what they've done the last decade or so, where you have, you've got Shatterstar, and Peter David did some stuff with him in X Factor. and you had kind of Longshot become a freedom fighter. You've had this character kind of evolve, I would say, fairly aimlessly in the last 10 to 15 years. Just the character pops up and it's, I don't know, it feels confusing what is even going on there. But Longshot in the 80s when he was introduced, I think he had a pretty cool sci-fi story. We're introduced to Rita and Spiral and Mojo and kind of that whole world. And then Claremont got his hands on it, and Longshot came in to the X-Men during kind of a broken period for them. This was during the kind of mutant massacre days into Fall of the Mutants, where the mutants went to Siege Perilous, and kind of the world thought they were dead, and they were kind of expelled to the outback. And Longshot quickly got into a relationship with Dazzler at that time. And I again, I love the character. I thought there was so much the character could do, and kind of where I thought the character could go is the background is, Longshot really had no. He was kind of a made human in a sense, bred to be kind of part of Mojo's entertainment empire. So, there's questions of did he have a soul, and the definition of mutant got kind of warped a little bit there. But he was also innocent. And so the idea of bringing a character like that in during pretty dark time in the X-Men's past, I mean, you had said that you had the mutant massacre, you had Inferno, you had all these kind of very destructive moments happening where Longshot was, naive and innocent, like here's a butterfly, while you got Wolverine going on. It was kind of a classic. It's a juxtaposition. You have Havoc and you have Colossus both descending. You have Dazzler, who had been kind of a one-note character, but now she's trying to find herself, and she has a level of insecurity and everything else. It wound up being, I think, a pretty great addition in that moment. But my hope for that character was always that, you'd have these moments where he would, like a child growing into teen adulthood, have these grim moments of kind of the weight of the world on his shoulders. Every now and then they gave Longshot something to do where he would, have to fight against kind of unstoppable odds, and it would be very rough at that time period. And it was, you got a deeper sense of kind of the fall of innocence, the fall of kind of this naive, worldview that Longshot had. And those were always nice, but Claremont would always then reset him back, which I think kind of leads me to say, I think Claremont didn't use the character well. I think to Claremont, Longshot was very much a product of the 80s. He had, dress of the 80s. He had haircut of the 80s. He paired him up with Dazzler. And I thought that was a good pairing. It was a little bit too much on the nose. We got two kind of, music dressed kind of 80s people who were paired up, and didn't really explore that relationship beyond, he was kind of a boy toy for her. And, it didn't, that relationship didn't have the depth it could have had. And in the end, it felt like Claremont really didn't have anything to do with the character, or he didn't have any kind of bigger ideas. He was more interested in several of the other characters he was writing, and Longshot got, to a large extent, kind of the short end of the stick. He was relegated to kind of background comic relief at times, and missed out on this opportunity to say, you've got this guy who's this, media produced warrior for another planet. He is out of his time, out of his world. He is, completely has no knowledge. He has a mind of a child to some extent. And kind of these realizations are going to hit him harder than others. But other than contrasting kind of darker elements of the X-Men at the time, they really didn't do anything with the character. And then in later years, Longshot kind of would pop up every now and then. They had a couple moments where it's like, no, now he's a freedom fighter, and he's grown up, and and all that. They would toy around a Dazzler, but then they seemed to kind of lose interest in that as a relationship as well. And so, it just never became what it would be. but I feel like we talk about kind of missed opportunities, and often we talk about newer characters in the Marvel universe. But Longshot was a character in the 80s that kind of never really got off the launch pad a bit and wound up becoming a kind of an experiment that would never lived up to his potential. And I think it exposes, I love Chris Claremont. I love the X-Men. I think this is an example of where his writing sometimes doesn't land, because he was so hung up in kind of the tropes and other things he was bringing to the title that he really didn't know how to, what to do with Longshot. Part of the problem may be, and I think people have forgotten a little bit of this fact, Longshot, the limited series, is actually done by Innocenti. Chris Claremont later took the character for the X-Men. And like I said, I just was an interesting character. I always liked the character as a fun character. Not much happened with the character. And then ultimately, they did do a storyline where Longshot and Dazzler go off to, as I mentioned before, become freedom fighters. He's a little bit older. Dazzler has a child, or at least is pregnant. For a long time, they kind of said she lost the child in battle, or there was a miscarriage or something or other. But then they're also hinting that Shatterstar was the baby. And so that did get tied up, a long time later. I believe Peter David was the one to kind of tie that up, where they did reveal that, yes, Shatterstar was their child, the child of Longshot and Dazzler. And then they kind of erased some memories and other things. And I guess he was in the Exiles for a while, for a period of time. But anyway, and then he lost his memory. It's a mess. I think, in the spirit of, like, if you want a writer who can come in and just kind of have a lot of success with the X-Men in this moment, this reboot, that's what I would do. I would run a series of kind of repairing characters. So how can you actually turn Joseph into a fan favorite, or not fan favorite again, but just truly tie that one off and make it good, but Longshot would be a great one. Bring the character, get the memories back, put them together with Dazzler, or don't, but basically kind of reestablish not just this wandering kind of, memory lost amnesiac who's, stuck with no character development like that. That's the kind of stuff I would love to see someone do. It felt like Hickman was going to do that in that X-Men Legends, where they, the first couple issues, he did the what was it, two-parter with Brett Booth, and they were dealing with the Atom X stuff, and it was right there, I think, I felt like that was Hickman's idea, to actually kind of prepare some of these storylines and clean them up and, get things on a good track. But of course that petered out. But anyway, did you like Longshot? Is it just me that liked this character, or you kind of, I never saw the appeal? Let me know in the comments below what you think of this character. Is there more that could be done? It's a rare video where I'm like, yeah, Chris Claremont didn't do it right here. I do, like I said, I really like Claremont, but I think this one was one of those where, I don't know, give the character back to Innocenti. Something. Anyway, thanks for listening.